You know that feeling? The one where the air gets sucked out of your lungs, your vision tunnels, and the world just stops? I felt that standing in my own living room, the sunlight streaming through the window, mocking me with its cheerful warmth. In my hand, this beautiful piece of cardstock. Thick, creamy paper, elegant gold lettering, announcing the happiest day of my life. Our happiest day. Mine and Chloe's. The day we were supposed to pledge forever, in front of everyone we knew, at that ridiculously expensive vineyard she just had to have. And just seconds before, literally seconds, I'd been scrolling through potential honeymoon destinations on her laptop she'd left open. Typical Saturday morning, right? Planning our future. Except I clicked on the wrong folder. Or maybe it was the right folder. A folder innocuously labeled Project Dragonfly. Weird name, I thought. Maybe some work thing she forgot to close? Curiosity, man. It's a killer. Inside wasn't spreadsheets or presentations. It was an exit strategy. Her exit strategy. From me. Timed meticulously for after the wedding bells chimed, after the gifts were unwrapped, after the checks were deposited. And the emails, oh God, the emails. Back and forth with him. Mark. Her ex. The guy she swore was ancient history, a footnote in her past life. Apparently, footnotes can write entire new chapters. I'm Alex, by the way. Or I was. Now I feel like a ghost haunting my own life. I'm a software developer. Not exactly setting the world on fire, but comfortable, stable, reliable. That's what I thought mattered. Chloe and I met 4 years ago. Whirlwind romance, the kind you see in movies, or maybe the kind you think you see. She was vibrant, exciting, everything I thought I wasn't. We moved in together after a year, got engaged last Christmas under the Rockefeller Center tree, cliché, I know, but she cried, said it was perfect. And I believed her. Everyone thought we were perfect. My mom adored her. My buddies envied me. You landed a goddess, man, my best friend Jake used to say. Yeah, a goddess of deceit. We were neck-deep in wedding planning. Deposits paid, guest list finalized, agonizing over floral arrangements and cake flavors, vanilla bean versus salted caramel. The debates were epic, or so I thought. Looking back, it was all a performance. A meticulously crafted illusion, and I was the star dupe. There were signs, weren't there? Little things. Whispered phone calls she'd taken the other room, ending abruptly when I walked in. The sudden password change on her phone and laptop. For security, she'd said with a dismissive wave of her hand. The increased late nights working or drinks with the girls that seemed to coincide with whenever Mark was supposedly back in town visiting family. I'd asked her once, point blank, if she was still in touch with him. She'd laughed right in my face. Called me insecure. Jealous. Had I completely lost my mind to even suggest such a thing? She was planning our wedding, for crying out loud. How could I be so suspicious? And like an idiot, I apologized. I felt guilty for doubting her, for questioning the dream she was supposedly building for us. The dream I was largely funding, if I'm being honest. The vineyard, the designer dress, the 10-piece band. Her tastes were always champagne, even when my budget was more beer. But I wanted to make her happy. God, what a fool I was. A blind, trusting fool. The emails, they weren't just vague plans. They were detailed. Logistics. How she'd feign a brief period of marital bliss, maybe a month or two, just long enough to avoid suspicion. How she'd gradually start fights, make me seem like the problem. How she'd transfer her share of the wedding gift money into a separate account I didn't know about. They talked about where they'd go. A little beach town down south. Mark apparently had a friend with a condo there. They even joked about it. Joked about me. About how clueless I was. How I was the perfect stepping stone. Reading those words, it was like acid pouring into my veins. Alex is sweet, bless his heart, but so predictable. He'll provide the perfect launch pad, one of her emails read. Another one from Mark. Just hold on a bit longer, babe. Endure the clown for the ceremony, collect the prizes, and then we start our real life. The clown. That was me. The guy paying for the circus she was about to run away from. My breath hitched. I felt sick. Physically sick. I stumbled back from the laptop, knocking over a stack of bridal magazines Chloe had left on the coffee table. Pictures of smiling couples, perfect dresses, fairy tale settings, it all felt obscene now. A grotesque parody. The Project Dragonfly folder contained everything. Flight confirmations booked under her maiden name for 3 months after the wedding date. Screenshots of bank account details for an account I'd never seen. Even a draft of a Dear John letter she was planning to leave behind. A letter full of lukewarm apologies and vague excuses about needing to find herself. Finding herself in another man's arms, funded by my generosity and the generosity of our families and friends. I printed everything. Every email, every screenshot, every damning piece of evidence. My hands were shaking so violently I could barely operate the printer. The machine whirred, spitting out page after page of her betrayal, each sheet feeling like another stab wound. Chloe was downstairs. I could hear her humming that annoying pop song she loved, probably scrolling through Pinterest boards for centerpiece ideas. The sheer normalcy of it, the absolute audacity of her planning this elaborate fantasy wedding while simultaneously plotting its destruction and my humiliation, it ignited something in me. The shock was morphing, crystallizing into a cold, hard rage I'd never felt before. The glossy invitations lay scattered on the floor where I dropped them, mocking me with their promise of a future that was now a lie. Our song, the one she insisted the band play for our first dance, drifted up from downstairs where she was testing speakers. Every note felt like a hammer blow. The dream wasn't just dead. It felt like it had never been real. It was a phantom limb, still aching where it used to be attached. But the pain was quickly being overshadowed by something else. A chilling clarity. A terrifying resolve. She thought she was playing me? She thought she could use me, humiliate me, and just walk away with a suitcase full of cash and memories of my pathetic, trusting face? Oh, no. No, no, no. The wedding she was planning? It was off. Definitely off. But the performance? The performance was far from over. She just didn't know her role was about to change. Drastically. I smoothed out the printed emails, the ink still warm. My heart was pounding, a war drum signaling the start of a battle she never saw coming. She wanted a show? I'd give her a goddamn spectacle. The immediate urge was to storm downstairs, throw the printed emails in her face, watch her perfect mask crumble. I wanted to scream, to rage, to demand answers I already knew. But that cold clarity held me back. Blowing up now would be unsatisfying. It would give her a chance to spin it, to play the victim, maybe even turn it around on me somehow. No. This required precision. Calculation. The clown needed to stay in character just a little longer, long enough to set the stage properly. I took a deep breath, the scent of lemon polish and betrayal hanging heavy in the air. I carefully gathered the printouts, hiding them securely in my work bag, burying them under files she'd never look at. Then, I splashed cold water on my face, practiced a neutral expression in the bathroom mirror, the hardest acting job of my life, and went downstairs. She was there, exactly as I'd pictured, tablet in hand, frowning slightly. "Hey," she said, looking up briefly. "Can you believe the caterer wants an extra $500 just for gluten-free options? It's insane." She launched into a complaint about wedding expenses, the very expenses that were part of her Launchpad fund. Listening to her talk, so casually, about the details of a day she had no intention of honoring, it was surreal. My blood ran cold, but I forced a nod, maybe murmured something non-committal about finding a cheaper option. Inside, I was dissecting every word, every gesture, seeing the manipulation, the performance art. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? The stress she blamed for her recent irritability, the wedding jitters she used to excuse her secrecy, it was all part of the act. I needed space. I needed to think. I told her I had a sudden work emergency, something about a server crash that needed my immediate attention at the office, even though it was Saturday. She barely looked up. "Okay, honey, don't work too late. We need to finalize the seating chart tonight." The casual honey, the mention of we, it felt like scraping fingernails on a chalkboard. I grabbed my keys and my work bag, the one containing the evidence of her treachery, and walked out, the door clicking shut behind me with a finality only I understood. Driving away, I didn't go to the office. I just drove. Aimlessly. For hours. The city lights blurred past, a kaleidoscope of normalcy that felt utterly alien. My mind was racing. What now? Cancel everything immediately? Expose her publicly? Confront Mark? The options swirled, each bringing a fresh wave of nausea and anger. My first call wasn't to a lawyer, not yet. It was to Jake, my best friend since college. I pulled over, parked under a flickering street lamp, and told him everything. The folder. The emails. The ex. The plan. He was silent for a long moment, the kind of silence that speaks volumes. Then, just, holy. "Alex, man. I don't even know what to say. Are you okay?" No, I wasn't okay. But hearing his unwavering support, his immediate fury on my behalf, it was the first solid thing I'd felt all day. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But I'm not just rolling over. She's not getting away with this." Jake offered his spare room, offered to come sit with me, offered to go punch Mark in the face, an offer I briefly considered. His loyalty was a lifeline. Over the next few days, I played the part of the devoted fiancé, albeit a slightly distant one, blaming work stress. Chloe seemed oblivious, occasionally annoyed by my preoccupation, but mostly focused on her grand wedding production. Meanwhile, I was digging. Quietly, methodically. I accessed our shared financial records online. It wasn't hard. She always relied on me for the boring money stuff. And there it was. Small, regular transfers to that hidden account she thought I didn't know about. Skimming off the top from joint savings, disguised as wedding vendor payments that were slightly inflated. And the credit card statements. Oh, the credit card statements. Charges I didn't recognize. Little weekend trips I wasn't invited on. Gifts, expensive ones, sent to an address that a quick Google search confirmed belonged to Mark's parents. The scale of the deception was breathtaking. This wasn't a recent lapse. This had been going on for months, maybe longer. The engagement, the wedding planning. It was all a long con. Then came the escalation I hadn't fully anticipated. Chloe's mom called me. Apparently, Chloe had tearfully told her I was being cold and distant, that I was getting wedding jitters and making her feel insecure. Her mom, a woman I'd always liked, gently chided me, reminding me how lucky I was, how much Chloe loved me, how perfect the wedding would be. I felt a surge of bile rise in my throat. Playing the victim already. Setting the stage for me to be the bad guy when things inevitably fell apart. I mumbled some reassurances, hating myself for not screaming the truth down the phone line. But not yet. The timing wasn't right. The confrontation finally happened a week after the discovery. I couldn't maintain the facade any longer. I waited until she brought up the seating chart again, spreading names across the dining table like pieces in a game only she knew the rules to. I let her talk for a few minutes about where to put her slightly embarrassing uncle, about keeping warring cousins apart. Then, calmly, I pushed the printouts across the table towards her. Project Dragonfly. The emails. The bank transfers. The flight confirmation. Her face, it was a masterpiece of controlled chaos. First, confusion. Then, dawning horror. Then, a flicker of pure, unadulterated panic. She tried denial first. "What is this? Alex, where did you get this? Is this some kind of joke?" Her voice trembled, but the bravado was paper-thin. "The joke," I said, my voice dangerously quiet, "is that I almost married you." Then came the tears. Predictable. Crocodile tears, shimmering with false regret. "Alex, baby, it's not what it looks like." "Mark," he was pressuring me. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you. The lies flowed effortlessly. It was almost impressive. She tried to touch my arm, but I flinched back as if burned. "Don't," I said, the word sharp, cutting through her performance. "Don't insult my intelligence any further." The denial crumbled, replaced by a desperate, scrambling attempt at justification. Okay. So I talked to Mark. Is that a crime? We have history. It was confusing. This whole wedding pressure. It got to me. But I chose you, Alex. I was choosing you. Choosing me? While booking flights with him and siphoning money. The audacity was staggering. I just stared at her, letting the silence stretch, letting her lies hang in the air and rot. Seeing she wasn't getting anywhere, the panic turned to anger. "How could you spy on me? Going through my private things. You're controlling." This is why. This is exactly why I felt suffocated. Gaslighting 101. Blame the victim. It was pathetic. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "Get out," I said softly. She blinked. "What?" "Pack your things. Get out of my house." "Our house," she shrieked, the mask completely gone now, revealing the ugliness beneath. "We're getting married in 3 months. You can't just throw me out." "There is no wedding, Chloe," I stated, each word deliberate. "There is no us. There's just you, your lies, and him. Now get out." I stood up, walked to the front door, and held it open. The look on her face was a cocktail of fury, fear, and disbelief. She finally seemed to understand that the game was up, but she still didn't grasp the full picture. She thought this was the end. She didn't realize it was just the intermission. As she scrambled to pack, hurling insults and threats, I made another call. This time, to a lawyer Jake had recommended. A shark, apparently. Good. I was going to need one. Because canceling the wedding was just step one. Untangling the financial mess, dealing with the vendors, the deposits, and ensuring Chloe and Mark didn't profit a single cent from this fiasco, that was step two. And I had a feeling Mark wasn't going to like the message I was planning to send him next. He thought he was stealing my fiancée? He had no idea what he was really signing up for. The days following the confrontation were a blur of logistical nightmares and chillingly calm strategy sessions. Chloe, after a dramatic exit involving slammed doors and tearful calls to anyone who would listen, predictably tried to paint me as the villain. Text flooded my phone, alternating between desperate apologies. I made a terrible mistake. Alex, please, let's talk. And venomous accusations, you'll regret this. You ruined my life. I ignored them all, letting them pile up as digital evidence of her instability. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Sarah with eyes that missed nothing, was meticulous. We went through every vendor contract, every shared expense, every piece of evidence I had collected. The financial trail Chloe had left was damningly clear. Sarah smirked. Oh, she made this easy, she'd said, tapping the printouts of the hidden bank account statements. Attempting to defraud you using wedding funds? That's not just bad form, darling, that's actionable. The first move was financial. We contacted every single wedding vendor, the vineyard, the caterer, the band, the florist, the photographer. Armed with copies of Chloe's emails detailing her plan to bolt after the event, Sarah drafted letters explaining the situation. The engagement was off due to fraud. We weren't just canceling. We were contesting any non-refundable deposits paid from joint accounts or my personal funds, citing misrepresentation and fraudulent inducement. The reaction was mixed. Some vendors were sympathetic and agreed to partial refunds or credits, especially the smaller businesses who didn't want bad publicity. The big ones, like the vineyard Chloe had her heart set on, were tougher. Their contracts were ironclad. But the threat of legal action, highlighting Chloe's documented intent to deceive them too, by using their services under false pretenses, made them nervous. We didn't get everything back, but we managed to claw back a significant portion, and crucially, froze her ability to access any remaining credits or make changes. The dream venue became a source of legal headaches for her instead of a fairy tale setting. Simultaneously, Sarah moved to legally dissolve any financial ties. We froze the joint savings account Chloe had been dipping into. We presented evidence to the bank regarding the unauthorized transfers to her secret account. The look on Chloe's face when her debit card was declined at a fancy boutique, Jake heard about it through the grapevine, was reportedly priceless. She called me, screaming this time, incoherent with rage. I let it go to voicemail, saved the message, and forwarded it to Sarah. More evidence. The next step was social. This was trickier. I didn't want a messy public spectacle purely for revenge, but I couldn't let her control the narrative and slander me to our mutual friends and family. I decided on controlled disclosure. I spoke privately to my parents and closest friends first, showing them the undeniable proof. They were horrified, angry, but fiercely supportive. Then, I tackled the harder conversations, our mutual friends, even my extended family who had grown fond of Chloe. I kept it factual, calm, letting the emails and bank statements speak for themselves. I wanted you to hear it from me directly, I'd say. The wedding is off. Chloe had other plans. The fallout was swift. Most people were disgusted by her actions. Invitations to her hastily planned pity party, as Jake called it, went largely unanswered. Her attempts to garner sympathy backfired spectacularly as the truth, backed by evidence, circulated quietly but effectively. Then, there was Mark. He remained silent, likely coached by Chloe. I debated contacting him directly, but Sarah advised against it initially. Why warn him? Instead, we focused on the legal and financial pressure on Chloe. Cut off from funds, her reputation in tatters, she became increasingly desperate. That's when she made her mistake. She started contacting mutual friends, trying to borrow money, spinning wild tales about my abuse and control. One friend, pretending sympathy, recorded a call where Chloe explicitly detailed parts of her plan with Mark, admitting they intended to use the wedding gifts to start over. Bingo. More ammunition. The climax wasn't one single explosion, but a series of controlled detonations. The final blow came during what was supposed to be a mediation meeting arranged by our lawyers to finalize the separation of minor assets, furniture, shared belongings. Chloe arrived looking pale but defiant, Mark hovering awkwardly behind her like a cheap bodyguard. He had this smug look, like he'd won. He clearly thought this was just about dividing up pots and pans. He hadn't grasped the financial or potential legal implications. Sarah laid out our terms. Chloe would walk away with only her personal belongings purchased before the engagement. Any assets acquired during the engagement, especially those linked to wedding planning or paid for by me, were mine. We presented the evidence of the fraudulent transfers, the recorded phone call, the emails detailing her intent to abscond with wedding gifts. We pointed out that pursuing criminal charges for fraud was still an option on the table. Chloe's face crumpled. The defiance vanished, replaced by sheer terror. She started shaking her head, muttering, "No, no, this isn't fair." Mark's smugness evaporated. He looked like he'd swallowed poison. He started to bluster. "Now, hold on, this is ridiculous." Sarah cut him off coolly. "Is it, Mr. Davies? Perhaps you'd like to explain your documented collusion in planning to defraud my client and potentially hundreds of wedding guests." Mark turned white. He looked at Chloe, not with affection, but with dawning horror, perhaps realizing the mess he'd stepped into. Chloe burst into tears, real tears this time, fueled by desperation. "Alex, please. I'm sorry. I was wrong. So wrong. Don't do this. We can work something out." She begged. She pleaded. She looked utterly broken. There was no satisfaction in seeing it, just a profound sense of waste. All that energy, all that planning, all directed towards deceit. Mark, seeing his escape route, and potentially his wallet, threatened, started backing away, literally and figuratively. "Look, I wasn't really involved in the money side," he stammered, throwing Chloe under the bus without a second thought. "That was all her idea." Chloe stared at him, betrayal flashing in her eyes. The perfect couple, already turning on each other. It was pathetic. I stood up. I hadn't said much during the meeting, letting Sarah handle the legal onslaught. But now, I looked directly at Chloe, ignoring Mark completely. "There's nothing to work out, Chloe." My voice was steady, devoid of the heat it once held. The rage had burned out, leaving behind only ashes and a weary finality. I pulled the engagement ring box from my pocket. The diamond glittered under the harsh office lights, a symbol of a promise that meant nothing. I slid it across the polished table towards her. It stopped right in front of her trembling hands. "Consider this your severance package," I said quietly, echoing the thought I'd had that first day. "For services rendered in showing me your true colors." Then, I turned and walked towards the door. Sarah gathered her papers, giving Chloe and Mark one last withering glance. Chloe was sobbing uncontrollably now, her head in her hands. Mark looked like he wanted to disappear into the floorboards. I didn't look back. As the door clicked shut behind me, I felt lighter. The weight of the sham wedding, the burden of her betrayal, it felt like it was finally lifting. The battle was won. The wedding was dead and buried. Now, it was time to start excavating my own life from the wreckage. The immediate future was uncertain, filled with lawyers and paperwork, but for the first time in months, it felt like my future again, not one dictated by her lies. The cleanup would be messy, but the demolition was complete. 2 years. That's how long it's been since that final, soul-crushing mediation meeting. 2 years can feel like a lifetime, or just the blink of an eye, depending on how you spend them. For me, it felt like shedding an old skin, painfully at first, then with a growing sense of liberation. The immediate aftermath wasn't exactly sunshine and roses, let's be real. There were lingering legal details, awkward conversations, moments where the phantom pain of the betrayal would flare up unexpectedly, usually late at night when the house felt too quiet. Selling the house we'd picked out together felt like closing a coffin lid, necessary, but heavy. I poured myself into work, not as an escape, but as a focus. My software development job, the one Chloe had subtly mocked as stable but boring, turned out to be my anchor. I threw myself into a challenging new project, clocked long hours, and 6 months later, landed a significant promotion with a team lead position and a hefty raise. Funny how stable suddenly looked a lot more appealing from a higher vantage point. I also reconnected with myself. Things I'd let slide while catering to Chloe's demanding social calendar and wedding obsession came back into focus. I started hiking again, something I loved, but she'd always deemed too sweaty. Jake and I took that road trip we'd talked about for years, camping under the stars, miles away from reliable cell service and drama. I spent more time with my family, real quality time, letting their uncomplicated love wash over the bruised parts of my soul. Healing wasn't linear. Some days were great, filled with newfound energy and optimism. Others, I'd see a happy couple holding hands or catch a whiff of the perfume Chloe used to wear, and the floor would drop out from under me for a second. But gradually, the good days started to vastly outnumber the bad. The scar tissue formed, not erasing the wound, but making it a part of my history, not my present. About a year ago, hesitantly at first, I started dating again. It was different this time. My bullshit detector was finely tuned, perhaps overly sensitive initially. I wasn't looking for fireworks or grand pronouncements. I was looking for authenticity, kindness, mutual respect, and eventually, I found it. Her name is Laura. She's a graphic designer, funny, independent, and refreshingly honest. There are no games, no hidden agendas. We talk, really talk. We build things together, slowly, deliberately. IKEA furniture, trust, a future. It's not the dizzying roller coaster Chloe represented. It's more like a steady, warm current. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. Laura knows my story, the broad strokes anyway. She listened without judgment, offered quiet support, and crucially, never saw me as damaged goods, but as someone who survived a storm and learned how to navigate by the stars. And Chloe? Well, karma, as they say, can be a real piece of work. From what I've heard through the grapevine, because I blocked her number, email, and all social media the day I walked out of that lawyer's office, things didn't exactly turn out like her Project Dragonfly envisioned. Mark, true to form, apparently ditched her not long after the mediation meeting, likely spooked by the financial mess and potential legal trouble. He reportedly complained to mutual acquaintances that she was too much drama and brought it all on herself. The irony is thicker than that wedding cake we never got to taste. Without my financial backing and facing the consequences of her vendor disputes and damaged reputation, Chloe struggled. The last I heard, she'd moved back in with her parents in her hometown. Someone saw her working part-time as a waitress at a chain restaurant, a far cry from the champagne lifestyle she craved and tried to steal. Her social media, which I accidentally glimpsed via a friend's phone once, paints a picture of forced smiles and vague hashtags about new beginnings, but the desperation is palpable between the pixels. She apparently tried reaching out a few times indirectly, through old mutual friends, hinting about wanting to apologize, maybe even testing the waters for reconciliation. The thought is laughable now. There's nothing left to reconcile. The person she betrayed doesn't exist anymore. I'm different now. Stronger. Wiser. Less tolerant of bullshit. I actually saw her once, about 6 months ago. It was completely random. I was downtown with Laura, heading into a bookstore. Chloe was coming out, juggling a couple of shopping bags from discount stores. She looked diminished. Her clothes were trying too hard. Her makeup seemed harsher in the daylight, and there was a weariness around her eyes that wasn't there before. She saw me, saw Laura holding my hand, and froze. For a split second, our eyes met. I saw a flicker of something, recognition, shock, maybe even that old, familiar panic. But I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel pain. I felt nothing. A strange, detached pity, maybe. Laura squeezed my hand, sensing the shift, but didn't ask. We just walked past, into the store, the moment dissolving like smoke. She was just a ghost from a past life, no longer capable of haunting me. Looking back now, the whole ordeal was excruciating, a trial by fire I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. But walking through that fire forged something new in me. It taught me the devastating price of misplaced trust, but also the incredible resilience of the human spirit. It showed me the difference between loving someone and losing yourself in them. It taught me that red flags are red for a reason, and gut feelings shouldn't be ignored, no matter how inconvenient the truth might be. Most importantly, it taught me the profound importance of self-worth. Never again will I allow someone else's desires to eclipse my own needs, my own boundaries, my own value. The dream wedding she planned turned into a nightmare, but waking up from it, however brutally, allowed me to build a real life, one grounded in honesty, respect, and genuine happiness. The price of admission was steep, paid in heartache and disillusionment, but the life I have now? It's authentic, it's peaceful, and it's mine. And that brings us to the end of today's story. Thank you so much for tuning in. I truly hope to see you again for more fascinating tales ahead. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on our next adventure. See you soon.